Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast for the 7th of October to the 11th of October 2019. For anybody who hasn't watched the video before, what we're going to do today is we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index and crude oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. I'm also going to highlight some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in the coming week and also for the weeks ahead. So as always, I hope you're having a great weekend. Let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. As always, we're going to start off with the US dollar index. Now, last week we traded into the target set at the 99.37 before pulling back to the key area of support highlighted last week at the 98.73. This is also, by the looks of it, a retest of the 98.86, which we've been highlighting in previous videos. And you can look at this as an area of support because of the way these two levels are lining up. So we have the key area of support at 98.73 plus the start of the 2017 bear market at 98.86. It looks like we have finally broken this area and we've come back and retested it. You can see we tested it here, break, and looks like we've come back to retest this area. So very simply put, going into this week, the opportunities we're going to be looking for are for further advances to the upside in the dollar index. And we're going to be looking all the way up to the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set, the 100.01. This means that going into next week, we are going into next week with a bullish bias on the dollar index, and we're going to be looking primarily for long positions in the dollar pairs. So next market we're going to look at is crude oil. Now last week we highlighted the 54.85 area as a key area to look for a potential bounce to the upside. We came down and we tested this area, but instead of getting any bullish formations and patterns in this area, you can see we traded straight through this. We had a test on the underside and we continued down. So very simply put, because of this reversal going into last week, we are now looking further declines to the downside in crude oil. This also shows you why it's important to actually look for these patterns in this area. We don't just buy or sell these levels, we're looking for tradable patterns in these areas. These are bounce points. So now we've broken down through this. What we'd like to see going into this week, if we can get a pullback and if we can come back and retest broken support, turning resistance at the 54.85, this is going to be a great place going into next week to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. We're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside of the target set at a 50.54, and if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2, the 49.11. So next market we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now last week we highlighted 1.09930 as an area to look for a pullback in euro dollar last week. We did get a decline to the downside first. In fact, we made a good profit shorting this with TFT members on Monday before this pullback to the 1.09930. Now we've pulled back and retested it. This is once again a great place to start to look for shorting opportunities. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside of the target set at the 1.07780. So next market we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now last week we highlighted the 1.23930 to look for a pullback in this pair last week. We did get this pullback and we did test this key area of broken support, turning resistance at the 1.23930. So very simply put, going into this week, this is now a great area to start to look. Perhaps if we can get one more retest for anybody not looking at this last week, this would be a great place to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set, the 1.2176. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2, the 1.2080. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar Japanese yen. Now at the start of the video when we looked at the DXY index, we did state that we would prefer to look for dollar long positions this week. So in this case it would be US dollar yen to the upside. You can see, however, we are structured to the downside currently in US dollar yen. So what we may end up getting, if we have some strength next week in the dollar, we may just have that strength pushing this for the retracement into the 107.610 before rolling over to the downside. Or this, another good way we can use this next week is as what we call plan B currency. So if the dollar index fails at that support level and we start to see a weakening in the dollar index, we will keep this on our radar. We'll come to this and we'll look for those further declines so we can take that dollar weakness on the opposite side. So very simply put, going into this week, although we are overall looking for further advances in the dollar index, we are looking for a pullback towards the 107.610 in the US dollar yen. If we get a pullback into this area, this is going to be a great place to start to see if we can get those bearish formations and patterns. And again, if we start to fail in the dollar index at that support, this is where we might see this setup come into play. And if we get the right kind of bearish formations and patterns in this area after a pullback, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 105.63. Now, if the dollar does start to bounce to the upside and you see that strength coming into the dollar index, we would be cautious next week about shorting this. This really is more of a reversal or a plan B setup if the dollar actually weakens next week instead of strengthens. So next market we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now, we are looking further declines to the downside in Aussie dollar. If we can get a pullback, and if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance at the 0.68370, this is going to be the best place going into next week to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set, the 0.6605. So next market we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now, last week we highlighted the 0.63720 as an area to look for a pullback towards. We did get a pullback towards this area. We haven't quite tested it yet. So very simply put, going into next week, if we can come back further and test the key area of broken support, turning resistance at 0.63720, this is going to be the preferable place as it gives us the best risk to reward to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set, 0.6130. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar Swiss franc. Now, we start the week above a key area of broken resistance from the past, looking to turn support at 0.98760. If we can get a pullback next week, and as always, preferably if we can come back and retest broken resistance turning support, this is going to be a great place to start to look for those bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, the 1.0049. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar CAD. Now, we start the week above a key area of broken resistance from the past, looking to turn support at the 1.32260. If we can get a pullback, and any pullback in this area, but preferably if we can come back and retest broken resistance turning support, this will be the best place in terms of risk to reward to start to look for those bullish formations and patterns. We're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and the target set, the 1.3382. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance, the upside and target 2, the 1.3429. And last but not least, we have gold. Now, last week we highlighted the 1525.790 as an area to look for a pullback in gold. We did get a pullback towards this area. We haven't come up and tested it just yet. So very simply put, we're looking further declines overall in this market. But if we can come back and retest broken support, turning resistance at the 1525.790, this is going to be the best place in terms of risk to reward next week to start to look for those bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and target set at the 1453.00. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to everyone who does that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all a fantastic week next week, and I want to wish you all a great weekend, what's left of it. The only thing left for me to say is take care and don't forget to trade safely.